Gregory Larkin, the betrayal, brutality, and fallout of a family tragedy. The picturesque town of Fernandina Beach, sitting quietly in Nassau County, Florida, was known for its peaceful charm. But in April 2009, the tranquility shattered. News of a gruesome double homicide sent shockwaves through the community. Richard and Myra Larkin, an elderly and much-beloved couple, had been discovered savagely beaten to death in their own home. For this friendly community, the violent crime was incomprehensible, and the true horror of it all was yet to be revealed. Law enforcement officers arrived at the Larkin residence to a scene of unthinkable brutality. Death had come not swiftly but violently. The tools of the crime, a baseball bat and a concrete statue, left behind as grim reminders of the savagery. Former Sheriff Tommy Seagraves, a seasoned lawman, later described it as the single most gruesome case he'd ever encountered. But lurking within the evolving investigation was a chilling twist, one that no one anticipated. In the days after the crime, the search for answers began in earnest. Initial suspicion fell on no specific individual. Richard and Myra were well-regarded, sociable, and reportedly had no enemies. The lack of forced entry suggested the victims might have known their killer, a fact that only deepened the mystery. But then a troubling lead emerged. Gregory Larkin, the couple's 35-year-old son, had been conspicuously absent in the aftermath. Gregory claimed he'd been in Mexico at the time of the crime. To neighbors and friends, the idea that their own son could harbor any malevolence against his parents seemed absurd. Yet strange patterns in Gregory's story began to surface. Investigators zeroed in on a series of damning discoveries. Gregory had left behind a key piece of evidence, clothing stained with his parents' blood. Then, their missing vehicle turned up not far from where Gregory had been staying in Jacksonville, Florida. Pieces of his alibi began to unravel, resurrecting a chilling line of inquiry. What drove him to commit such a heinous act? Prosecutors were quick to piece together a probable motive: Gregory's rage at his parents for selling a business he had been managing. Already struggling with financial problems and personal failures, the sale was seen as a betrayal. The mounting tension finally exploded into violence. When Gregory was arrested, questions shifted. What kind of man would commit such an unthinkable betrayal? Those who knew him recounted his erratic behavior and personal missteps, though few believed he could reach such a breaking point. Yet the evidence was irrefutable. The small crumbs of denial faded as the case against him solidified. His capture offered the town some relief, but no comfort. A wound this deep was not so easily mended. News of Gregory's arrest rippled through Nassau County, igniting debates about family ties, the capacity for violence, and the hidden dynamics of troubled relationships. The once peaceful community was left grappling with the broader implications of the tragedy. When Gregory Larkin stood trial in 2012, his behavior was anything but ordinary. Instead of relying on legal counsel, he chose to represent himself, an act that baffled jurists, legal analysts, and his own family. It wasn't long before his bizarre antics began to dominate the courtroom. From interrupting proceedings to dismissing any shred of strategic defense, Gregory became an unsettling figure at the center of a storm. Experts pointed to signs of severe mental health struggles. Still, the court ultimately determined Gregory competent to represent himself, a decision that sparked controversy among observers. It was a trial like no other, where the question of accountability collided seamlessly with disturbing questions about Gregory's state of mind. The jury, unmoved by Gregory's demeanor, reached its decision unanimously. The conclusion was clear. Gregory Larkin was guilty of the first-degree murders of his parents. His sentence, death. For those watching the case unfold, the verdict brought justice. But no amount of courtroom drama could undo the pain endured by Richard and Myra's surviving family members. Even as Gregory awaited execution on death row, unsettling questions endured. Critics of the justice system spoke loudly about the broader implications of his trial. By all accounts, Gregory's mental health seemed to have unraveled long before the brutal murders of his parents. Yet no intervention had taken place, no attempt to stem the tide before it crested into violence. What unfolded instead was both a legal and moral quandary. Would rehabilitative structures or therapy have spared two lives? Did his trial, conducted with his erratic self-representation, truly serve the interests of justice? The case came to symbolize a larger systemic failure, casting a harsh spotlight on the intersection of criminality and mental health. As time passed, Gregory slipped from public attention, his life confined to the cold, isolating walls of a death row cell. Questions about his state of mind persisted as vividly as they had during his trial. Occasionally news of his condition, troubled, distant, spiraling, leaked out. Analysts and advocates alike continued to express concern about his psychological state. The Larkin family, meanwhile, wrestled not only with grief but a complex tangle of emotions. Forgiveness may have seemed impossible, but so too did unending hatred. For many of them, Gregory's incarceration was both a balm and a reminder of a chapter fraught with unspeakable pain. On a routine morning in 2019, Gregory Larkin was found dead in his cell on death row. Initial reports pointed to suicide, though the details surrounding his death remain sparse. The Florida Department of Corrections launched an investigation, but little was shared with the public. The suddenness of his death reopened old wounds for those closest to the case. His passing left the Larkin family shattered once again. For them, the specter of Gregory, his actions, his punishment, and his mental decline now loomed over their lives in finality. The closure they sought seemed perpetually out of reach. Nassau County, too, felt the impact, replaying the events that had turned a quiet town into a national headline. The legacy of Gregory Larkin's crimes transcends the immediate pain of the murders. In Fernandina Beach, the crime left an indelible mark not just on those connected to the victims, but on every family that wondered if such devastation could visit their own home. The betrayal perpetrated by Gregory forever altered the fabric of the community. The tragic complexities of this case also served to spotlight systemic gaps. It became clear that the criminal justice system's response to people in severe psychological distress was inadequate, with profound consequences. Advocates questioned how many warnings had been missed, how many red flags had gone unheeded, and how many lives might have been different if intervention had taken place. The story of Gregory Larkin is about more than just the brutal demise of Richard and Myra or the trial that followed. It is about failure on a personal level, a familial level, and a societal level. It is about broken systems and fractured relationships. Perhaps most haunting, it is about how invisible struggles can boil over into irreparable damage. For true crime enthusiasts, cases like Gregory's encapsulate the intersection of human frailty and unspeakable violence. They invite us to explore the darkest corners of the human psyche, not for the sake of morbid fascination, but to glean some understanding or semblance of enlightenment. As the story of Gregory Larkin's crimes reaches its conclusion, what remains are unanswered questions and lingering pain. His life is gone, leaving behind only memories of destruction. His parents, Richard and Myra, are gone too, taken far too early by an act of betrayal they never saw coming. In the end, this case serves as more than a chilling true crime story. It is a sobering reminder of what unchecked struggles can unleash. Mental health, family tension, and lapses in support systems all led up to this tragedy. It's a narrative not just for the town of Fernandina Beach to ponder, but for all who hear it and recognize the dark complexities interwoven in the human experience. For now, we can only reflect on the grim realities of the Larkin family. What was taken from them, what may have been preventable, and what lingers long after the courtroom verdict fades into history.